About a half-mile into their hike, the temperature suddenly dropped like a stone. From 75 degrees, the air was now 20 degrees colder. All three stopped and silently looked at each other. There was no wind blowing. The air was still, and the zone they were standing in gave them a deep chill. Axelrod silently raised his hand and motioned backwards. All three walked backwards, and within a couple of yards, the temperature had gone back to high 70s. Axelrod motioned forward, and the three moved silently in unison. Again, they walked into a wall of coldness. "Weather front?" muttered Costigan. "Probably," answered Axelrod. And again the trio retreated. Again they exited the wall of chilled air into the warm night. 3 times they repeated the maneuver, and 3 times the sharp boundary that defined the wall of cold air remained in the same location. "Let's move on," Axelrod said, and the trio resumed their journey west. Costigan began scanning the environment, and all around him the bleak Badlands landscape looked eerie in night vision green. 30 yards further on, all three began to feel anxious, and as they walked further, the anxiety deepened and turned into fear. No one said anything. They continued on their journey. But every step they took, their fear seemed to escalate. There was no external reason. No one wanted to be the first to mention the alarm they felt. 10 yards further on, the fear had escalated to mortal fear, and eventually Axelrod raised a hand and all three stopped. "Do any of you feel that?" Axelrod asked, his heart beating madly, the adrenaline surging through him. The other two acknowledged they felt intense alarm. All three looked around a full 360 to find what was causing this nameless dread, a fear for their lives that was more intense than they had ever felt. Axelrod raised his arm and motioned forward. All three swallowed and slowly began moving forward. Again, the fear escalated. The three were sweating profusely. "Wait," Costigan whispered hoarsely, and his trembling hand pointed directly westward on the track. 50 yards ahead of him, the ghostly outlines of the 3 old homesteads were now in view. But Costigan was focused on something else. Directly ahead of the trio on the track, Costigan's night vision scope showed an oval area of blackness about 8 feet tall, surrounded by the night scope's normal green color. It was as if, Costigan said later, all light had been extinguished in that dark oval shape. Costigan felt the black structure was radiating a menacing presence. Neither Axelrod or Wilson could make out anything definitive in the gloom, but, as if in psychological agreement with what Costigan was seeing, they instinctively acknowledged that the source of their fear was 50 yards further down the track. At that point, all three felt close to their breaking point, each one convinced that continuing toward the dark oval shape would lead to certain death. Without a word, the three began to retrace their steps, as if guided by the same direct order. Slowly, as they walked back, the terror began to subside. As if on a rheostat, the further they retreated from the mysterious black oval shape on the track, the less fear they felt. After 100 yards, the fear had left them. Silently, the three walked back to the Command and Control Center trailer, located on the east end of the ranch, for the debriefing. A couple of years later, AAWSAP Bass Program Manager Kelleher interviewed Axelrod and Costigan separately about the events on the ranch that night. Both remained baffled regarding the source of the fear, and the interview confirmed that only Costigan saw the black oval shape through a night vision scope. The implication was that the oval structure could not be seen in the visible wavelengths, 400 to 700 nanometers, and had only been illuminated above 850 nanometers. The next day, the atmosphere was much lighter. The three comrades were back to joking, and the sun shone beautifully on the serene ranch. It was as if the terrifying events of the night before had never happened, or had happened in a different reality. The rest of the day was uneventful. The three had walked the full length of the property without any negative effects. The three then packed up and were back with their families in their homes in Virginia and Maryland the following night.